Hi, I'm sure you guys have had a long day, and the last thing you want is a half-hour spiel. So let me just quickly start so I can quickly end it as well. For the longest time after we started out, I would construct a nightmare in my half-sleep. I'm saying half-sleep because if you're starting out from scratch, you only get to have half sleep. I don't think there has been, it's like having a baby, right? Once you've had a baby, you know that there is no deep sleep. There's always, one part of your brain is always firefighting. So this nightmare that I have is actually, I'm standing among a quintillion bits and pixels and bytes and what you have, and I'm looking up at the Google and Facebook universe, and I'm screaming, मेरे पास वीडियो है, आर्टिकल है, लाइव ब्लॉग है, पॉडकास्ट है, इंटरैक्टिव है, ग्राफिक नॉवल है, किक-एस UI UX है, you say it, मेरे पास है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? And the universe screams back at me and says, मेरे पास revenue है. And that's the nightmare, and then you wake up and say, no, things are changing, there is, subscriptions are kicking in, data is getting cheaper, smartphones are getting cheaper, thank you China, it's all going to, the story is changing, it's, marketers are finally waking up to realize that the audiences are now on digital, or at least moving to digital, so it would make sense for me to shift some of my spends to digital. But, that's what it is. I just wanted to bring up the revenue bit, because any conversation on digital, on any platform like DigiPub, nothing gets done until you've had a conversation on revenue, and it's a conversation that I don't look forward to. So I just wanted to bring it up right in front and, get it out of the way. So an anecdotal journey of our learnings or my learnings so far, and when I was initially asked to think about this, I thought 3.5 years. I should be done in like 5 minutes of talking, but when I actually got down to putting down notes on what I've learned, I realized that it's so much that if I don't watch it, I'll have a boring long read, which will have a high bounce rate, and I must therefore have a catchy opening, which is why I tried the Mere Paas Maa Hai opening, hoping ki digital teaches you that you must make it all happen in the first scroll, you must make it happen in the first 5 seconds of the video, otherwise, there's going to be a huge bounce rate. So here we are, 3.5, 4 years down. 2014 was a seminal year in many, many, many ways, as we know as a nation. It was particularly seminal for us because that's when we exited Network 18. And for a while, Raghav was yet to make the transition, so he was still working with Network 18. And I had moved to a very quiet new office where I was a team of one person. And I was suddenly, uprooted from the mad clickety-clack pace of of a newsroom, of major production, of events, of unrelenting sales action, everything that can happen in a large media network. And suddenly I was sitting in my very quiet new workspace alone, and then it was very, very daunting because I was just recovering from emotional farewell parties and just getting systems going for a new office, and I was doing everything to push away having to address digital because I didn't know digital. I had no idea what digital is. For the citizen journalism bit that I used to do at what was then CNN IBN, I had dived a little bit into digital, but I didn't really understand it. So then I decided to start off on a self-learned journey. Thank you, Neiman's Journalism Lab. Thank you, DigiDay. Thank you, all of these people. And the sense I got from that, I even sat and did Code Academy for several weeks, and I knew CSS and HTML and other strange letters of the alphabet that digital forces upon you. But basically the sense that I got was there is a huge opportunity here for India, because I realized that there is very, in India, the digital players had only dipped their toe into the vast potential that there was. And I just was very, very keen that I must now go and find out what is happening in the most innovative parts of the world with digital, because that's the only, the usual stuff was there. The usual stuff that it's all about the mobile phone, it's all about, it's all about breaking templates, it's all about, but it was all about print. It was still back in 2014, it was all about print and streaming whatever broadcasters were creating as television video. And that's pretty much what we were doing at Network 18 as well. So, and then suddenly I had to realize that it's all with new age media, and I had to rethink of myself as, I am not legacy anymore, I am new age media. It was a little sort of mantra to keep chanting, because it takes a while to step out of 22 years of your previous self and into this new person. So we decided to go to the US, and we went across to not the legacy organizations, but we went across, and they were very, very kind and patient people at some of the youngest newsrooms that there were. And there was Mike.com, there was HuffPost, there was Vox. And actually, everywhere we were hearing pretty much the same thing: keep it lean, keep it young, keep it innovative, but everyone was still very print driven. Everyone in 2014, even in the US, video for digital there was just a very small smattering. It was the only people who really seemed to be doing really exciting work there was BuzzFeed. And the rest was largely, because even Vox hadn't really started doing any video. But one of the best things, we wanted to meet somebody from content, because the whole orientation was content, and we had only been thinking content till then. And luckily for us, nobody from content was free to meet with us at Vox. And we had one, sort of patient, kind, indulgent person from their tech team. And what he opened out for us was Concert and Harmony. What are Concert and Harmony? Concert and Harmony is their publishing platform, which was still in the works at that point. And Concert was the tech platform that they were developing, or had developed for their ad solutions for the site. And that was one large learning that we had, or at least I had, because for 22 years before that, I had only seen myself as somebody who handled content. And I had a real chip on my shoulder about being a content person, because, it's all where content is king, and, what would distribution do without content? What would sales do without content? What would anybody do without content? And I realized that when it comes to digital, you've got to have a very, very good understanding of tech and what tech does for content, because if it's 55% content, it is actually 45 tech that is enabling the content. And that was boggling our mind at that point, because that is not what we had set out to search. We had not got, the tech word wasn't part of our inquiry at all. As it so happened, there used to be, I don't know how many of you remember it, there used to be a product called Prismatic. And I used to be fascinated, because personalization of content was amazingly done by Prismatic. It was a personalized, it was just an aggregator that threw up. And we were very keen to find Prismatic and find ways of partnering with. We just wanted to, we kept looking for someone to partner with. For some reason that was, I think we were insecure to start off, ki koi hamare saath partner kar le, and then we'll have a head start, and we'll have learnings, and we'll have, so Prismatic was, so we went all the way across to the Bay Area to meet Prismatic. And, there was a startup guy with me, which was Raghav, in his formal jacket and trousers. And the founder, the well-achieved founder of Prismatic, was sitting in shorts and a hoodie and looking at Raghav and saying, "What gives, man? Who are you? Why should I know you?" And, here we came with, we are, we're big people in the media. It was lovely to find somebody looking at you and say, "Tum ho kaun?" And, why should I even look at you? And he actually, and it's an interesting story, because he actually then, he said, "You come back tomorrow." And when we went back the next day, we found one Indian-looking guy sitting there. A guy called Amit Rathore, who had just exited his business with to Staples and had just exited, was also looking for something interesting to do. But he had been called in there to verify who we were. Are these guys who they claim to be? Because if they have nothing, if they've come to us with nothing, saying, we have nothing, we have intention, and we have a legacy, why should I even talk to them? And we were saying, oh, good. Now this is one Indian guy, and he's going to say, yeah, these guys are substantial guys. And unfortunately for us, Amit Rathore had no idea who we were. So he just stared at us, and he looked at us, and, and basically, effectively communicated to these guys. So they said, listen, do you want a prismatic t-shirt? We have some in your size. You can, that's you can pull something out of our fridge if you like. And that was it. But, as they say, something good comes out of everything. So we came back with our learnings that, you got to focus on tech and, the rest of the stuff, which I think you guys would have heard all through the day, which has now become very normalized, which was kind of new at that point. So I'm not going to, stick with what we learned at that point. But what emerged was, after we came back, we got a mail from Amit Rathore saying, do you want to work? We'd said something about, our learnings from our meeting at Vox, that it's all about tech. And he said, do you want to work with us? We can build out your tech, we can build out your platform. And we said, yes. Silicon Valley se banda phone kar raha hai, let's go for it. And that was the birth of Quintype. You would have seen Quintype popping up here every now and then, and there's Shirdeep sitting right there. So Quintype was born primarily to be the content marketing management system for the Quint. And then, of course, and then there was a big blur, because then we were throwing, I was like a kid in a candy store, because I had picked up so much jargon, so much of the jargon which I had no understanding of what it really meant, but I had become a champion after multiple meetings on just, what they say, fake it till you make it. I had been faking it, so I just started throwing, apart from my wish list we had this wish list which was about 7 pages long, of what we wanted our product to be like, and basically that was, Mike has this, Vox has this, HuffPo has this. It was just a collection of, because we had no background in digital, so it was just a collection. So there was, you're saying we want personalization, we want targeted ads, we want optimized research, we want, every iOS jump, we want to be part of it, we want to beat hormonal algos, we want to be on wearables, we want to be we want to be everywhere. As we launch, we want to be, when we launch, because we have our own tech, we want to make such a splash, and we want to be so cool that, the world is going to say, look, this is what digital is. And then started the long and arduous journey of building out the tech and building out the content team. And we realized that tech takes time. It doesn't get done like this. It takes a lot of time. We started putting together our team. Now, clearly all data, all learnings indicated that the obvious things which all of you take for granted now, but for us at that point which is that it's all on the mobile phone, and it's on the mobile phone, and therefore it's a very young audience. It's 18 to 35 years old, and you have to be talking to that audience. And so we said, okay, now how do you get down to doing that? So we said, why don't our content creators become the people who would be our prospective readers? So we put together, and at that point, because we had learned from various Firang newsrooms that you have to keep it lean. So we started off saying 25 people. That's how large our newsroom will be. 25 people, that is it. And so we started handpicking people for the team who came from very, very diverse backgrounds. So it wasn't that we were just picking people from newsrooms. We got somebody who had been writing novels. We got somebody who was from a newsroom. We got somebody who had done only, from Men's XP kind of place, didn't know what news is at all. And the question then was, what does this reader need? What does this user need? What is the hole we are here to plug? We don't want to be here doing more of what everybody who's on digital in India is already doing. So what do we need to do? So for that purpose, we created a prototype, who we called Proto, who we said, okay, now what would Proto want? Proto is 20 years old, etc. Then we realized that there are multiple Protos. What if Proto is a girl? What if Proto is only 15 years old? And then we realized that kind of, you can't really do it like that. You have to be, you have to go with a few basic things, like a given was that this person is not reading the paper, this person is not watching TV news. So is it a given that this person is not interested in news? And the answer that came back to us through another experiment was not that. It was that they still have the same need for accurate, accessible, diverse, relevant, timely content. I'm saying content, I'm making a distinction between content and news. The other question to ask ourselves was, what can we do better than anyone else? Because I think that was really important. What's the problem that we're going to solve in the digital content space? What will we be doing that will matter? You know, what will it that people will really come to us? And of course, the answer for us very obviously was video, because we'd been in broadcasting with 25 plus channels behind us. So video was a given. And of course, the learning, unlearning journey started again. Pretty much the learning, unlearning that was in the US was, listen, content but tech. The learning, unlearning now here was, listen, you may be champs at video of a certain kind, but here there are no weekly shows, there are no templates, there is the first 5 seconds that has to matter on autopub. People are watching on silent mode, therefore your video has to work on silent. It has to be short. It has to be, you have to be able to say a lot in, we started off with saying all our videos will not exceed 45 seconds. So there was a huge, so now how do we unlearn everything that we knew about video and start again? But these are things that you already know. I think for me, the one learning that has been on video, and any content actually for us on digital, is that unlike broadcast, video content on digital needs to be very honest. It needs to be raw. Broadcast dresses up a lot of things. Broadcast is about a really glossy set. Broadcast is about hosts and anchors coming out of a makeup room. It's about doing feature shows where you gloss up, you diffuse. And what my learning has been, my one big learning has been on video is, listen, you've got to be very, very honest, and you've got to be very, very raw in the way you communicate. You've got to let the what's show. You've got to let your opinion show. You've got to let how you're going about getting that story show. You've got to be really, you've got to let the user in on your journey. You've got to be as transparent as that. The other thing we realized was a huge opportunity was the really low number of women who were consuming content on digital. And I'm not just talking about, internet accessibility or mobile phone accessibility in India, and therefore the number of women who have access to it. I'm talking about urban, educated women community. And I was amazed, and I realized that in my broadcast years, I'd only been talking to 45 plus SECA male audiences. And one of the problems we need to plug was, listen, there are women here, or young girls or young ladies here, who need to be engaged with content. And that's how we, when we made the team, we made sure that at least 60% of our team, of our newsroom, comprised young women, young talented women. Coming back to the story about QuintType. So QuintType and all of this, while all of this was happening, QuintType was still in the works. It was still being made. And we'd had a newsroom full of talented people generating content, mock content, for 2.5 months already. And a little bit of restlessness was going on. And there had been this anecdotal thing that, why are you, people used to tell people who were joining us, why are you joining the Quint? Isn't it like Raghav Bell's retirement plan? And so, you were like, we had this, I hope people don't begin to wonder that, yahan pe kuch hone wala nahi hai and we should get something going. So on an instinct, one evening we said, we're going to go live on Facebook tomorrow. We don't have a platform, we don't have a website, let's just go live on Facebook. One of the best things that happened again, it really is, just like the content guy at Fox couldn't meet us, similarly I think going live on Facebook was one of the best things that happened, because what it taught us is you have to be extremely sensitive to your user. Facebook taught us what works, what doesn't work, what gets consumed, what just gets ignored, what time of the day is who's consuming what at what time of the day. Suddenly for the first time I was looking at insights, I was looking at, that landed up sensitizing the entire newsroom to conversing with the audience, because what it also showed us was journalism on digital was not communication. It was not about journalists who are truth holders, who are the repositories of all the information and fact, and that the user is one passive thing who is waiting to consume the information that the superior journalist mind puts out. What we realize is that it's now conversation. Publishing on digital is a conversation. It's two-way. By nature of the fact that it's on the damn mobile phone, that means there is something that the user can be doing with your content. They can be interacting with your content. So that was the one big learning. So the way you craft your content has to be working towards a conversation. And it was a very, very humbling exercise for some of the senior journalists who were with us, because suddenly you had to be open to the fact that somebody could turn around and tell you a few things. Somebody who was not a journalist could tell you about a few things about your content. So that was one big learning and unlearning that we had. Also the big learning was, listen, this is such an agile platform, because unlike TV where distribution needed a large distribution team, it needed big chunk of your budgets to go into carriage fee, and then you had to do this undercutting with local cable guys, and there was all that game that happened. We realized that this is a slightly more, I know there is the algo, but this was slightly more even playing field, that there was going to be we all know how the whole social media game has played out since then, but I just wanted to focus a little bit on how it influenced how we look at news and content. It just changed a little bit of that for us. And of course, what it also told us was that because you're talking to a younger, you have to be far more conversational and chatty and much more accessible in the way you're communicating. And that's what we realized, that's what we did with our videos. So in fact, if there was a young person just getting up from his chair, not trying to get his hair and makeup done and just saying what he felt like and made that into a video, we found, of course, as long as it's based on fact, and we found that there was somebody who responded. And we would have people sending in their videos, echoing or questioning what we had put out. And that was the beginning of what eventually now became at the Quint we do a lot of things which are interactive with the users, and I think that's one of the things that differentiated us as a brand. What we over time have also discovered that you've got to be where your audience is. And you've got to not be cynical about it. There's lots of people who would be cynical about this social media platform or that social media platform. But you've got to have a lot of respect for the platform and how the user is interacting. So you can't just say, I'm generating this content and I'm going to post it on Facebook, I'm going to post it on Twitter, I'm going to post it on Instagram, I'm going to post it on... Each platform has a different kind of audience, and it has a different way of interacting, and it has its own tech and design which requires you. And so that's when we realized that content was still king, but the user was now a superwoman or a superman now, because he or she was now engaging with you and dictating in partnership with you. So dictating is the wrong word. Deciding in partnership with you on what he or she wants out of you. And it's that closely listening and responding to the audience. I think that is one of the biggest learnings that we have, because in a linear medium like television, you just don't think about it. So that the next big learning for us was that while the user may be distracted, and I think it's very unfair when we say, the user is very distracted and got ADHD and, doesn't have any focus, and, you've got to really create snacky, viral, clickbaity content. What our learning has been is that if you've got to have a clear brand promise of credibility, because that is one, as we all know, that is currently a huge opportunity for anybody who is in journalism, is to be credible and to be unbiased and to be completely based, putting out stuff based on fact. So we said, we're not going to go into this virality. We will have a lot of attitude, we will have a lot of opinion, but it's all going to be based on fact and enabled by tech. But what we also realize is that you have to keep breaking the model. It's not good enough to say that we are doing video when nobody else is, since we were the first people who were doing video only for digital at that point. We realize that if we go into that comfort zone and we say, we're the only guys doing this, it's going to just take 15 days and, a certain team to come together for the next 5 newsrooms to start generating video, which is as good as yours, if not better. That is when we decided that Quint Lab should be born. That is what the birth of Quint Lab should be. So Quint Lab is a little subset of the Quint, and its mandate is that they have to come up with the next big thing which will engage your audience. You have to come up with formats, interactives, deep dives, special projects, which are content driven, but they give you an experience, they give you a mobile experience, which regular just video and text doesn't give you. Because what was clear was that digital is not just video stolen from TV and articles stolen from newspapers. It's got its own language, it's got its vocabulary, it's got its own tech that enables a certain kind of ways of telling stories. So, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but if you are interested, you should go and check out the section that we have, the Quint Lab section that we have. We're not doing loads and loads of stuff because it takes time, but we're constantly pushing the envelope so that when the data is good enough and when connectivity is strong enough, we'll have content in formats which are purely digital in their thinking. Mobile, we talked about mobile. Everybody knows that it's all on mobile. One of our biggest learnings in our journey was when, we were very, very young. We didn't even have a full newsroom, and the Bihar elections happened. And that was a big opportunity, and we said, what do? We don't have, and we'd done elections in a certain way for years and years and years. We had covered election in a certain way, so we had to completely, again, unlearn everything. So this constant journey has been one of unlearning and learning. And we said that we're going to now, we were using, the mobile phone it's an end-to-end thing, right, on digital. You consume it on digital, you create content on digital, you edit it, you shoot, you edit, you process, and you put it out on digital. It's consumed, put it on the mobile phone, and it's consumed on the mobile phone. So we said that we're not going to have any OB vans, we're not going to have any live views, we're not going to have, multiple 6-member crews panning out across Bihar. We're a short, small team. We're going to put out 4 or 5 reporters who will go out solo with one of the commando kits, the mobile journalism commando kits, and this was in 2015, and they will, let's just see what they do, and we will function on FTP, and we'll work on other ways of transferring content. And that was such an amazing journey for us, because we thought we were working around adversity and lack of resources, but we didn't even have a sales team. For the first year of our life, we didn't even have a sales team, and we had a brand reach out to us saying, hey, we like what you're doing, can we come on board as a sponsor for this? And we said, listen, this is elections, no intervention on the editorial. They said, no, just the fact that you guys are out doing this entire thing on a mobile phone, that it's end-to-end mobile phone, and we got that. So again, the story there being that when it comes to adversity leads to innovation. Adversity, or what, not adversity, that's a slightly harsh word, is, having less leads to more, and you got a sponsor. And you got a whole, in the process of the Bihar elections, we got a whole newsroom trained to just run out with a mobile phone, record, come back, or edit on the way on their mobile phone and put the video out. So we were actually being able to be neck and neck with TV channels, which was a real high for us. Yeah, so I forgot to tell you guys that we actually did finally, Quintype eventually came alive, crackling alive, turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to us, because it was a CMS that had been made for all our requirements. It was virtually guided by content requirements. So when it came alive, it was just incredible that we had so much agility, and there was so much we could do on this, on Quintype. So we went live. We finally stopped being a Facebook page, 16th, and then we realized that there's something called UI and UX. There needs to be design, because what we had done was, because we didn't understand design too much, and I have to be honest here, what I said overnight to the Quintype team was, listen, I know we haven't thought about design, I know we haven't thought about the site look, etc., 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 but just look at Mike.com. For the next 15 days, let's just copy Mike.com. After 15 days, we'll just figure out what our own design is. And the journey and the learning is that your design, your site design, your UI, UX, which I didn't even know, I used to pretend I used to know it, that fake it, make it trip was still going on. I had no idea what the difference between UI and UX is and what it works. In my head, it was just what the site looks like and how you go around, finding your content on it. And we realized that by not thinking of design, we'd made a huge mistake. And because you can't be as agile as that, you can't say, abhi Mike.com ko copy karte hain, and then we will somehow figure something out in a little while. We actually started, it took us almost 2 years to get a really deep enough design, because our content was so diverse. We were doing tech, sports, video, entertainment, we were doing multimedia, we were doing, Quint Lab stuff, we were doing what we call neon, which was really like sort of quirky, millennial stuff. We were doing a lot of things, and we realized that I kept meeting people who said, oh, you do news, but you largely pick up news from, syndicated wires. And I would say, no, but we do so much more. And I realized that nothing was getting discovered. And then we worked very, very closely with Lisa and her team for a year and a half. And the learning really is, you cannot even imagine what a new design did for the site. Our traffic, just the engagement on the site, the traffic, the number of content pieces that started getting discovered, it just went up. We just realized that we'd been so busy with creating content, we hadn't worried about discovery of that content. So, big learning. When we started seeing the analytic data come in on the, after our nude site design went up, it's just a massive, it's just so important. It is, so there was no way that anyone could have told you this from the outside. Some of these things have to be your own learnings. That gets me to analytics. So I discovered very early, once our site launched, I discovered very early that, there's a magical place called Google Analytics. It tells you in real time who's watching you, where, and who's consuming which piece of content and for how long, and when did that person go away, and that there's actually someone sitting in Addis Ababa who also consumed one piece of content. And it was just magical, and I realized I was just obsessively playing around with Google Analytics for the longest time. Except for one thing, we had by then a newsroom of about 60, 70 people by then. And what was heartbreaking was I would go to Google and I would find that in real time there were 7 people consuming us at any given time. On a good day it would go up to 9 or 11. And I would not share that with anybody because, for 70 people generating content, 9 people reading it, it was just too demoralizing. And I still remember, it was Madhuri Dixit's birthday, and we put out a piece of content on Madhuri and the evolution of her dance moves and how that affected Bollywood, etc. And for the first time, we had a day's rate, we had a traffic of 20,000 page views in one day. I can't even, today we have 40 million plus, but I don't even want to begin with saying what a high that 20,000 was for me that day. I actually ran out in the newsroom and I must have beaten all Madhuri moves. I danced in the middle of the newsroom because from 9 people consuming you to the validation that, there is something that you're doing right. And that was also a learning on watching analytics closely, but not so closely that it starts dictating content. Otherwise, you could have spent all your life doing Madhuri Dixit, right? And said, isse to traffic aata hai. But you realize that you need to keep building on, how to build a brand. We didn't realize we weren't doing it consciously, but we were gradually and slowly, we were building a brand, and it needed at some point for us to sit down and say, so what are we? Because a lot of people would come and tell us, you're sometimes trying to be BuzzFeed, you're sometimes trying to be NDTV, you're sometimes trying to be, there's so many things, and we would get. And what we were doing was pretty much what the team members wanted to do. Because if you come and visit the morning edit meeting that we have at the Quint, it's not about a bunch of senior editors dictating what the day's agenda should be. Everybody from across social media to everybody is free to send in an idea, and every idea is discussed threadbare. And that is why the diversity of content on the Quint is what it is. So we decided to stick by, as long as we were being honest with our journalism and being innovative with our content and pushing the envelope on what we wanted to do, it was fine. One of our biggest successes right in the beginning was some students at Srishti had come up with this Buri Ladki poster, and we said, how about we become, all the girls at the Quint become various versions of Buri Ladki, one who's watching porn, one who stays out late at night. And that meme, that piece of content went viral, only we forgot to put the Quint logo on it. But we realized that virality, we did not do the virality with just, anything quick and dirty. It was about substance, it was about making a statement, it was about making a point, and it went viral. So again, there was validation that you generate good content, it'll happen. Then along the journey, of course, there have been lots of highs. I'm not going to, go through too many of that. Our biggest, when a 4-year-old child was raped and it didn't even make it to the newspapers, we decided to raise money for her health, and she was brutalized, and we called her Choti Nirbhaya, and we just started our first, raising money for her. And we were not a very large, we didn't have a very large user base at that point. And then we realized that when you do something relevant and decent, we got massive contributions. Again, validation, do something different, do something meaningful, and see where that takes you. And we've been on that. So is that activism? Yes, partly activism. But for instance, we've done this campaign that we've again stalking after Varnika Kundu was stalked in Chandigarh. We did this campaign which we've been running for a while, asking for stalking to be made a non-bailable offense. And we created a microsite around it. We had people have been writing in for the last year and a half of their experiences with stalking. We had Shashi Tharoor and Kamini Jaiswal work with us on drafting the bill. We've had it pushed. It's been tabled in the parliament. What I'm trying to get at that what our learning has been that journalism in the digital universe is not just about putting the information and news out. It's about engaging and having these various conversations with your users on where you want to be. And for instance, now you might call it gimmicky. One of our pieces that has had the largest in 2 minutes, yeah, sure. Is when we put out a thing after the Kathua rape, saying our headline was, what has Prime Minister Modi said about the Kathua rape? And inside we just had one word, which was nothing. That was all that the piece of article was. But that got a huge resonance, and that started a lot of conversation around it. So whether it's a meme or whether it's content like that, or it's deep dive activist journalism like Talking Stalking or Choti Nirbhaya, everything works. I mean, we now have Webkoof, which is where we invite our users to come in and send us whenever they encounter a piece of fake news, and we push it back on our WhatsApp channel, since that's where the verified piece of news back on the WhatsApp channel, so that's where the fake news travels, so you might as well put out the fact-checked news back on that channel. We have My Report, which is our citizen journalism Again, what I'm trying to say is that our learning has been keep interacting with your user. Please keep interacting. Please keep the conversation with the user, whether it's through webcoof, my report. I just, as I'm just wrapping up, I just want to say one final thing, that even as, so much has changed, there's so much that I've learned, but the core elements of the craft of journalism remain constant. Like clearly narrating complex problems in real time, like making the significant interesting and the interesting significant, like, very important, like holding power to account. Now we know that not enough of that is happening in mainstream TV, and for whatever reason, they have their reasons, I'm sure, mainstream media seems to have capitulated in so many ways. You just have to watch a primetime Yellathon and you know what I'm talking about. But one of the things that I have to put out there is, unlike TV channels, where I think a certain amount of sameness has emerged because they're all competing with each other and looking over each other's shoulders and saying, they don't have reporting in prime time, they only have talk shows, we'll also have talk shows. Everybody's beginning to look the same, and it's all becoming about who wants to shout louder because of the competitiveness that they have. What I really enjoy in new age media is the fact that there is an unstated collaboration between all of us new age digital news services, whether it's Scroll or Wire. So if one person does a story, the conversation is not, the newsroom is not, how did they get the story, why didn't we get the story? It's like, they've got this story, how do we help build on that story? What else can we do around it? And that's happening across, and I think that is something that is very, very encouraging and positive in the new age media digital space, because it's allowed, partly because there is less regulation, the strong stand that digital has been able to take on being independent, and on having a voice. I think that's something to build on, and it's eventually, my takeaways from my 3 years of this long journey of 3 years is, listen, be proud of what makes you Tedha. We are Tedha at The Quint. Be proud of that. Don't try and fit in and be more like somebody else. Make your templates, destroy them. Go beyond the news. Allow yourself and everyone in your team to make mistakes, because if you don't do that, you're not going to grow. You're not going to evolve. Let your journalism be based on fact, even if it's an opinion piece. Keep an eye on revenue, very important. Think of your product holistically. You've got to think of the content, design, tech, revenue, and don't have silos who are thinking of content, silos who are thinking of design, silos who are thinking. It's got to be all flowing and flooding each other with better ideas. And don't get too comfortable too fast. Even if you've got the traffic that you were targeting, don't get too comfortable too fast. This is not a good time for journalism to get comfortable at all. So, everything is not fine, right? Subscriptions are not really happening as aggressively as they can to really help us think big on journalism and do that big project that you really want to do. Marketers are caught up in a time warp. They're not thinking of how our revenue should be adapted using technology and ideation around that on digital. Trust is a big issue in journalism. In India, we all know where we fare on the trust factor globally. We are stretched thin. There's so much conversation about burnout in the newsrooms. Scaling up is challenging. Investors are not looking entirely at content. There's so much to be. News is broken so many ways. But ask me, I think that's an opportunity. In an environment where news is broken so many ways, I think there's an opportunity to build a credible, honest product. It may not seem like that right now, but the future is waiting, and so seize the opportunity that the internet, don't keep bad-mouthing Facebook and Google, just seize every opportunity that everybody is giving you and optimize it for your product. Thanks so much.